everyone, it's live at 5 and the dog is beginning to bark. Anyway, welcome, and it's Monday, so live at 5 Mondays, all things healthy, and we have like 3 parts. One part is something completely new, something different, maybe new for you, maybe not new. And then some news, some updates, thoughts, things that have come across my path, my mind, those kind of things. And then some laughter, something to lighten us up. And whether it's puns, jokes, something humorous, things like that. So that's always helpful during times like this, where certainly, if you've reacted in the past about some certain things, this is knocking people off of their, how can I say, rock. That's probably the best way to look at it. So just get back up on the rock would be one way of looking at. But welcome, and let's go into what do we have here. Something completely new or different, and the reason I'm kind of bringing this up is perhaps some of you do know it, and it's a little bit of humor at the same time, and I'll fill you in on that in the meantime. But and I've been hearing it lately in these last weeks. I've been hearing this being mentioned, and so that's why I thought, I'm just going to explore it, but I'm going to bring it up today for the reason I'm going to bring it up today. Have you heard of the 7 deadly sins? Now, when I went to research today, what I thought was interesting, I thought you just don't really know. You hear these things, you don't really know where they come from, and interestingly enough, they actually come from Catholicism. I guess that's the way to look at it, Roman Catholic theology. And I looked it up, and it's interesting, how certain things can kind of get you going, and then all of a sudden you're judging yourself when this is a very, very good time to forgive yourself. But certain things have happened in the past. Yeah, they do. But it's interesting how things, they're named sins. They're also named as capital vices and cardinal sins. I know there's the word sin that I'm not too crazy about, but interesting word. So I'm just going to go over the 7. So you have them and I have them here. But pride, greed, envy, lust, which can include many different things, gluttony, which include different things, and sloth. So you have those, but then they're contrary to the 7 heavenly virtues, and there's all kinds of things here. The reason I like bringing up certain things like this is something where I'm looking at, shedding different things. So I'm just like shedding these deadly sins. Remember what I've said in the past, and this was in the book Sapiens. It was one of the things that I'll never forget when it said it in the book. Everything is made up. But one of the things we have to ask is why. There's so many times we're not asking questions. We're not questioning. We know this event, not enough questions. But why is this event even going on, right? So why? Why did they create this? I'm curious. There's a lot more things for people to think about and not move forward. But if we're here to experience, if we're here to be and experience with each other and learn and grow with each other, then, some of these things are just going to be part of our journey, if we want to call it that, in our bodily experience, our body's experience here. So some of these things they go in, I'm going to put the link up, and again, whether or not it's something you want to read, it's completely up to you, but it goes through the historical and modern definition of the association. I'm just kind of just looking it up, and then I'm just going to, have no need. But it says in AD, after death, 590, Pope Gregory I revisited this list to form a more common list. And then there's kind of that, and added envy in Latin. So there's all this kind of thing here that's with it. But the idea is somebody came up with this for whatever reason. They came up with it to go, if you do that, you're bad. You're bad. But the idea is there's so many things planted in us to feel bad. That's kind of when, let me see if I was in, so this shit's made up. That's probably what I will say. And then I'm hearing about the Pope wanting to be, and this is more why to this event, the Pope wanting to be the moral council to do with the global, whatever they want, this global reset, this economic reset. Yes, it has to do with climate change, which I've never felt that climate change. Yes, we all need to do stuff, no question about it. We can improve. But guess what, where all that stuff came from? Guess where buying more stuff than you need came from? It's almost like the same thing here. What does David Icke say? He says you create the problem and then problem something solution. Maybe you can bring it up here, but it'll come to me. And that's kind of the thing, right? So they've created the problem's been created. The problem's been created. But anyway, I'll put that up there. I thought this was kind of tied into still starting to question why, and do we really even know? No, but it doesn't serve us anymore, so we can get rid of it. And much of what I've talked about in here is abuses and excesses, and I don't think people really realize why they're doing certain things. Sometimes it's the idea that the magic bullet, this is to the medical, the magic bullet, the magic bullet. Well, as my sign will say, there is, I don't know where it's here, it up there, there's no shortcuts, worth going. And it's that experience that gives us more compassion and to teach us things. So very, very exciting. Inspiration, I guess what I'm going to say is Happy Women's Day, but I'm just going to give you a little take on it, my take on some of these things. Again, I'm going to get back to everything is created. If you've ever gone on the web and looked, what day is it? Any one day could have 1, 2, 3, or more. What kind of day is this? Is bagel day. This is bagel with cream cheese day. This is pizza day. This is popcorn day. So they have like all these days. It just seems so much noise for me, tell you the truth. And then when I hear, Happy Women's Day and Happy Employee Day, and there really should be a Happy Employer Day, and there really should be Happy Men's Day, and I'm just giving you my perspective on it, that you don't have to agree with me, but when the whole women's thing started coming out, and I actually attended one or two of them, I saw a disconnect in coming together. So I saw, women coming together, but I didn't see men and women coming together. And the way some things came out, and I understand people are in their growth, and there's the mind, the egoic mind, and all of that. But if people ask me about these things, I don't really attend any of those, and you might not see me ever kind of put on a happy this or a happy that day. I don't kind of put it out there, a happy Valentine's Day, even that, because all of that stuff was made up. Could it be for economics? Could it be for noise? Could it be for distraction? It's kind of all of the above in some ways. So the idea is, we have so many people in our lives, and we have this feeling towards each other. If we're going to be kind, let's not have Happy Kind Day. Let's be kind all the time, if you see what I mean. And women, it's your day every day. Every day it's your day. And it's your day to come into. You're not the victims, although we can see it as such because of the certain things that were shared. But that was all made up. And made up when, where, and how it all came about. And men has been victims in that too, as well, to treat women as such, or to even have slaves. I mean, all of these crazy things that were made up at some point for the reasons they were. Now, is it kind of where we are today? Kind of like a pinnacle, absolute, transformation opportunity at the same time, where we are bringing this all to the light. We're bringing everything to the light. The sex trafficking to the light. The horrific things that happen in religion. Although I don't know why this global economic forum exists, to tell you the truth. I mean, everything is there for us to understand the horrific things what priests have done, and it keeps coming out. But yet they just keep plowing forward. I will give them that they don't give up and they persevere. They probably have that on the heavenly, the heavenly things. But this is what's kind of coming up more, is there's a lot of shedding. And if it's true, and I remember I was in Ireland and was talking to the guide, and he was actually, and there was a group of us there, was actually communicating how much it has dropped off of the people that were attending Catholic Church. Now maybe it's all churches there, but I just remember specifically Catholic Church. But around the world, this seems to be happening. But also under my understanding is things have shifted, and there's individual people who are bringing people together in these places that are speaking in a different way. So there is some really wonderful things happening based on the people who are bringing these people together. And when you hear some of the messages, they say, this is not the typical church service I went to when I was a kid. And no, it wasn't like that at all, although we had to go for Bible school first and then come back upstairs. But, it was kind of different. So this is the things about, the questioning. So I was just kind of coming in, why did this created? Why? It was all created, right? It was all made up. And why is this made up? This particular event, and we can see the positive things that are happening, but it's also, we can see the negative things that are happening, and are they negative if there's so much positive? So in the middle there, if we come to center, it's opportunity, right? This is opportunity, and each and every one of us can maybe see it a little bit differently. Of course, this is where we kind of have to accept the different opinions or perspectives in that way. But I will say, hi, Angel. I just will say that because this is kind of like popping in. Now, I'm going to do a shout out to, as they say, shout out, to Peter Dennis. And on Saturday, I participated in a person who's practicing her vocal channeling, because you can channel in writing. You can channel in different ways, and one of the ways to speak vocally. So it was wonderful to participate with Joanna and to even learn more deeply about what Peter is doing with channelers and helping them and bringing them to different things, because here she is. It's a small group of people. We all got to ask a question. So I'm just going to give you a little bit of, probably not in the same words. I do have the recording, but I haven't transcribed it on that front. But I did ask about the seals, and I did ask about diet. And this is something I have been, I've contemplated past, but of the several questions that I wrote down, I figured the one is going to tap me as it's my turn to ask a question. And so it's kind of like two parts. Now she was channeling source. And there's different, you can channel, they can channel angels, they can channel, maybe there's guides or stuff like that. But this is source, as they call it. And the answers came back, oh yes, this is something you need to do. This is something you're very passionate about. Continue with the seal oil and working with the Inuit, and it's going to help people. It's helping people. And so that was that one part. But the other part that I asked was about the diet. And on this planet, we have had different people, indigenous people, and depending on where they are, choose different diets. But there's been a hard push in the past about going vegan or vegetarian. I get it, partially because of the commercialization of food, but it has harmed a lot of people's health in going that route. And as my observing of that and being within the raw food community to the level I was with the seal oils raw, and that by far is very helpful, which I will maybe allude to later. But the idea is the messages, the animals, what the source had mentioned, and again, I'll have to transcribe this to get the exact words, was that the animals we have a contract, a soul contract with us to be food, to be our food. This is what I've heard through the indigenous as well, in my interacting with the indigenous people and the natives, as we'll call them, and they have all the various names and stuff that they have, is that's what they spoke to in the medicine wheel, and anywhere I've been able to ask the question about what is the diet, what is the ideal diet, should we be eating meat, all these things, and it's fine. So, but people are going to have their experience and their desires and want to try it for the reasons they are, to have their own experience. It's fine. Who am I to know what's better for people if they have to have a certain experience with something? Of course, if they come here in the office and we're talking and I'm here, obviously there's that need to speak about what's going on and all of that. There's that. So what I want to go into next is there's a couple of things here. One is to go back into and continue and give you some more examples. It's clarity on nature versus artificial. And I may at times come back and refer things to as artificial and refer things to nature, natural perhaps. And I wanted to give you 3 examples based on our elements. Okay, bear with me because I'm just going to, this all kind of came through and then I wrote it down. So let's think of fire as one of the elements. So what do we get from fire? We get heat. Now, heat can be a good thing if you think about our metabolism, the way our body has to maintain a temperature, right? So that's that. And now none of this is bad, by the way. Then there's the other fire that burns us, that burns. And it may be because of our own creation. We decided to get a magnifying glass and burn an insect. I can't even think about doing that anymore. Sunburn, well, that's an experience, not so good for the body, but a sunburn, and then burn and heat, and thinking about that, the way we use heat to create refined oils, which I talked about. But any food, processed food, where they heat it, they denature it, denature. So they take the nature, the natural, out of it, and now you have vegetable oil that can sit in your cupboard for X number of years. So you can see then fire, sun, think of sun, sunburn, yes, sun that actually is required. We get our vitamin D. It's required for life, all the plants, and then the animals eat the plants. So we can see that at the right time, burning is good, as in forest fires. Sometimes they are man-made, but sometimes they're not. And this whole forest fires is a transforming into ashes, which then nourishes new plants. That's how I've been made to understand it. Now some things are just kind of coming in, so I'm just going to speak to them as they come in. So let's go to another element. You should probably write a whole book on each of these elements. So just touching the surface. Let's look at water. So water, we are mostly made of water, and water acts differently than any other element. They don't understand it. When you freeze water, it expands, but when you freeze other things, they shrink. So wonderful water. But if things get wet, right, so we have this water drink, so if things get wet, or let's say the water's stagnant, that's why I'm going to actually explain it. When water's stagnant, then this is where trouble comes in. This is where, in some ways, bacteria growth and all kinds of growth. And is it ideal? Well, you sure, in that kind of environment where it's kind of breaking things down, not crazy, but it's good. But you just want it in the right place, like the bacteria and the viruses. You want them on the dead body, to decompose the dead body, but not in the womb of a new mother, giving birth and get sepsis and so forth. So water, mold, right? So if you have things that are wet, even dehydrated foods, If you take out the moisture, it can last much longer. So that's taking out the moisture, which is a good thing. So moisture can cause mold, mildew. That's why basements are crazy. So there's that kind of thing about water. Then when we're thinking about, let's talk about air. And one of the key ingredients in air is oxygen. But if air doesn't move, it's, wind, you can see the element wind has its pluses. It can, help clean, as I kind of look at branches down on the ground, it's kind of like cleaning up the tree, right? Allowing for new growth. Wind can it can make you tired, no question about it, pushing against the wind, but it can also stir up things, which is not necessarily a bad thing. But you can see some of these winds are so strong, they're destructive, right? They're destructive. And maybe there's good that comes out of it. So I'll give an example. I think it was hurricanes. So now we're talking kind of a mixture of wind and rain, whereas a person who was down in Puerto Rico said it's the most beautiful sight after one of these hurricanes. The leaves, the trees, yes, everything kind of comes off, anything in its path, I guess, is strong enough. Then it comes off, but the brilliant green, all the new life that they don't talk about on the media, they just talk about the destruction of it, is brilliant, beautiful, vibrant. And this is what this person was explaining. I'll never forget this person speaking about it that way. So we can see the differences just within the elements about how they kind of work. They work for us at all times. The metal on the rust on metal, for example, that's nature. That's nature. So much of what I'm talking about is nature, and to accept nature, not to think of it as horrific, but think of it as in its way of the elements. It's a different perspective on it. So that's why I wanted to bring up those. But this is nature versus artificial. Where does artificial come from? Well, it comes from man trying to control. Drugs, man trying to control. Recreational drugs, I'll just say man trying to control people, perhaps all kinds of populations, dumb down the populations. What else we do? Artificial, there's a lot, all the processed foods, right? The fluoride that's in the water. So if you just look at the various things that we need to survive, food, sleep, while sleeping when there is bright street lights, so you've got all this artificial light coming into the room. Well, that, you have the star light, but it seems to be different than these lights from whether it's phones or TVs, and the screen time that we're thinking about more and more. Now they got the special glasses for that. So artificial comes in many different ways, and what people are saying sometimes is people being artificial. And it's almost like the Joneses. You've got to look like this, you've got to do this, you've got to do that. And somebody mentioned, I think it was Brock yesterday, our teeth aren't supposed to be white. They're supposed to be yellow. And so as you see, we create these things. I call it the royal syndrome in some ways. The royalty have the white bread. Everybody thinks that's the best, the best thing. The royalty lived this way. I'm just going kind of back in time, but today it's a little bit the same. Whoa, this person who maybe it's a Hollywood star wearing this particular shoe. Oh, everybody. This is why they have stars being part of a certain brand, right? Whether it's makeup and you have all these magazines. So we're being pushed information, and we have this artificial information being pushed at us, let's say, for us to do something they want us to do, to think that that's going to make us better, make it more attractive, whatever it is that you think, but you're thinking on the line. But yes, I want to bring up the white teeth as the artificial. There's a lot of things artificial. If you can name some, put some down below. It's just an exercise or homework as you're looking around and in your world. You know, is that natural or is it artificial? I mean, another one could be man-made because we can appreciate cars and vehicles to get us around, but artificial, natural, nature. Art, is it nature? Is it artificial? Now, what's nature? Walking, if you want to get from point A to point B, but what's wrong with the bicycle? You know, and that kind of thing. It's great exercise. So, the thing I want to bring up next is Druthers. I want to go through a particular, so any questions, comments, I invite you down below to mention, to speak about. Let me just find it on PDF. So some of you may already be familiar with Dr. Lee Merritt. There's a wonderful video that she did when she started cluing in to what is actually going on, and she started doing her own research, which whether you're a doctor or not can be doing. Now it is on page 6. I'll put the link down again from the Druthers, the online one. I just saved it here. The treatment of viral diseases, has the truth been suppressed for decades? And we can think about all of the various truths that maybe been suppressed for maybe centuries or maybe millennia. This is where Anastasia, the books, the Reading Cedars, will really help people tune into or be aware of or learn for the first time about our powers. Now, I've talked about all the P powers, purchasing power, you know, the power of the people coming together. Some of these, all these P's, placebo power, right? The power of the mind. Very good. So I just want to point out a few things in here, just in case you ain't going to take the time to read it. So one of the things that she goes into here, and it's a little bit about numbers, so I'm going to kind of read it so you have the context here. According to CDC, 80,000 people died in the U.S. last year from the flu. Okay, so we have these numbers, and we've all been repeating these numbers, whether it's, you know, 25,000 to 40,000 in Canada, and all these different numbers. That in itself is a lie. Okay? In truth, actual viral influenza accounts for only a fraction of those deaths. The CDC and World Health Organization once reported real numbers of influenza cases, and most people assume they still do. Assumption, you know what assume is, right? Ask how do you and me. But they actually report ILI, or influenza-like illness. See, this is, you know, when you think of, when I remember reading the symptoms list, I'm going, well, this is like a cold. This is like somebody, you know, like a fever, flu, or something like that. Very much similar. And in the past, they added the caveat that only 4 to 7% of ILI, influenza-like illness, was actually influenza. And the rest were other respiratory viruses. So when they say 80,000 people died, only 6,000 actually had viral influenza. Now, this is the truth of the matter. When other things have cropped up in the past, H1N1s, things like that, initially what comes to mind is they use a particular or again, they go by symptoms only and say, oh, now we have these many cases. Oh, we have these many. These are the people who have it. But when they go and do the lab work, like Italy did after last March, April, and they actually went deep into what was going on, then they, now mind you, they had 5G and they had vaccine shots and all that kind of thing, but they determined that there was 90 plus, I can't remember, it's 92, 94, it's a lot of 90 numbers, percent did not pass due to SARS-2. Now they say coronavirus, or they say those things, or COVID, but there you go. So what's happened in the past, or anything that may come of the future, anybody talks about it, when they mention large numbers like that, I just say, well, you know, this is, I really have the conversation with them as well, by what lab report do they determine that these people, 80,000, died of influenza? Like, how did they go there? And of course, most people can't answer that. They can't. So that's how to educate people on what actually happens. Now, it's in itself is a really good article, but the other key thing out of this article is the idea You've heard people say natural immunity, boost your own immune system. Yes, yes, yes. So in here, and this is to do with teaching immunology of communicable diseases to medical and nursing students got distorted. Most physicians today don't learn that the mortality of childhood diseases in well-nourished, unvaccinated, first world children was negligible prior to the advent of vaccines. Nor do they understand the big difference between vaccine immunity and disease-acquired immunity. So after recovery from measles or the flu or the mumps or any other common viral illnesses, a person walks away with full spectrum cellular and humoral immunity. So the immune system is specifically and generally strengthened against a multitude of future diseases in ways we do not fully understand. So when they say do not fully understand, or even when you research, oh, more research has to be done, well, this is a theory, this is what we think. Our body's pretty amazing. And I can't say they have all the answers, because if they did, at the degree that they're teaching and practicing, I don't think we'd have all this stuff. But I always get back to the reason why we can have so many cases, even respiratory or any of these conditions, is because we have lost sight of strengthening our health or a healthy lifestyle. We've lost sight of what it means. We go, oh, we're just giving our power over, never mind the government in this case, or religion in some cases, but the medical doctors, the medical system. Just given, there's times you're going to need them, absolutely. You break a bone, you get a infection for the reasons you do, then there. So in this case, that particular thing was me talking about the immune system. So that was the second thing. And the next thing is, worse yet, in some cases, vaccine-based immunity can worsen disease outcomes. So with SARS and other illnesses caused by RNA viruses, I'm not going to go into that, but what is kind of coming in here is because the vaccines are not getting to the root cause, they are not creating an all-around robust response, not just the antibodies. There can be problems at the same time with what they're injecting into our body. If I have to say it straight, injecting things into our blood is a dangerous game. If you add, like I was talking earlier about the virus from the dead bodies, and when they're in the time they were going from autopsy to delivering babies, when they delivered that in through, of course, the womb, I mean, that's inside the body, not quite the blood, but there's direct access to blood. Then you get sepsis, and it still happens today. In surgery and stuff like that, when things are all open and we have this environment, we think there's nothing in the air, but there's plenty in the air. So the idea is we have to understand immunity in a sense that natural and artificial. To me, the injections are artificial. Yeah, they have kind of a cool way of thinking about that, of course. Put a little bit in your system. Well, think of it this way. When they used to have chickenpox parties, and every child, you bring all your child over so they get chickenpox and go through it. To me, that is, have the parties for some of that. Now, the other thing I want to talk about here is, it's more the economic, which is definitely, if they really think people or some people can't see through that, that's crazy. But that's what happens. So in here, Dr. Fauci is tooting as anybody, and this is where we've come to the conclusion at times. If people want to make a sell, the car. I'm not putting down car salesmen, but let's just say they have that kind of thing. But you have a salesman, and all they do is want to get the sale, to make money, or reach their quota, or tickets with the police officers, or whatever it is. They've set up these systems. And in some ways, I've heard of people being in insurance or sales of a different sort, and they continuously employers to the employees to hammer, okay, now you've got to increase 10%. It's like, what? Like you probably exhausted everything at this, and people have had to leave their jobs because of it. So it's crazy. If I could give my full mind to employers like that, well, not satisfied, right? It's like, nope, we got to be richer. Nope, we got to be better. And it's just like kind of rolling off their tongue without even thinking about how it affects employees. So here's the thing. So Fauci, $3,600, I'm not even sure if I'm going to say this right, remdesivir, and then totally ignoring the $20 HCQ, that's the hydrochloroquine regime. So again, it's probably getting like doctors do. They promote more drugs, they sell more drugs, they recommend drugs, they write prescriptions for drugs, and they get a kickback, or they get a portion, or they get whatever. Thank you for doing that. You know, it's a good thank you. So in the case, media is the same thing. You know, they're going to go in lockstep with the politicians, especially if they're like corporate media or they're owned by them, or those kind of things. But okay, well, that's just all of that. But one other thing here. Yeah, there's all these things made up, and people are just happy to get what they do. But one of the things that she mentions in here, and if you go looking for it, it's there. And if I brought my Healing is Voltage book out, they go through a whole scenario where a pharmaceutical company actually made it up. They made the whole research study up. And they went to court and they got fined, and so obviously it's documented for you to see. So that in itself is just insane. So in most cases, the people that are doing or selling, you know, think of the billions of dollars that they're making. It's money, and they're giving more money. So none of this, however, explains the 40 years of medical misinformation and suppression of the pharmaceutical truth, to have covered up the knowledge for 4 decades that viruses could potentially be treated by antimicrobials required extensive effort. So in this case, she goes in to how some of these drugs are there, and they can be very helpful. Now I will flip it upside down and say, well, why are our body susceptible to it, or as they say, compromised, immune compromised? That to me is getting into a peace of mind, a calm, you know, not, you know, the opposite of stress, and finding eating properly, thinking well, sleeping well, enough activity, socializing, all these healthy things, by far, rather than just take some of these antimicrobials, that would be ideal. So that's the ideal. But in the meantime, as people work towards that, and some won't, some are just meant to go through this journey and to teach us certain things. So there you go. So here's just kind of a quick list. You know, the censorship that they've done, the buying silence in the news media, the misdirection, the lies. You know, Merck was caught publishing its own peer-reviewed journal to promote its drugs. And I remember a doctor, meeting a doctor who was so happened to be in a meeting. I don't know why they weren't vetted a little bit more, or seeing who's coming in, but maybe there was a great majority of people. And this was decades ago, where the medical, they're catching on to side effects and drugs. What do we need to work on? We're going to promote vaccines. We're going to go into the vaccine market more and more. So what do you got? You got these injections that are for cervical cancer. Boys don't even have cervical cancer, yet they're getting this injection and dying. You know, that's the truth of it. So it's almost a little bit crazy, and I can't understand it. But I think we're uncovering all of the crazy things that we need to uncover, look at, and go beyond, share, and make transformations here. So research funding, regulatory capture, you know, people working in the FDA, and they worked with the pharmaceutical companies. People that worked in the pharmaceutical companies are now working for FDA. So if you got to get things approved, you know, you're all buddies at the end of the day. Research funding, Big Pharma is a major funder of nearly all independent drug research, or they take your money that you've been giving to the not-for-profit organizations to do the research for you. for you, for them. So there you go. That's that. So let me think if there was anything else here. Oh yes, so I actually watched it. She actually mentions Dr. Lee Merritt, as the WHO reportedly admitted, as recorded in a currently unavailable YouTube video from the 2019 Vaccine Safety Summit. I watched it. I watched it. And where it says that the quote, front line is becoming wobbly, meaning doctors are less and less convinced that vaccines are safe and desirable. And that's exactly what they were saying. And they talked about this and talked about that, and they talked about the side effects, and they talked about, and then all of a sudden it's like, so how do we get them to take them? I'm going, did they just say that? Maybe they shouldn't be taking them. But for some reason, there's this absolute belief that we need an injection, that our immune system isn't capable of doing what it is able to do. But think of where we got to right now, again, with all these conditions, all these diseases, all this processed foods, all these things, they're not helping people be healthy. So we're in a vulnerable position. A number of people are very, very vulnerable. And that's the truth of the matter. So it's great to see more and more people coming into a space of, well, what do I have to do? And, exploring holistic nutrition, exploring, I know on my end, iridology, exploring the mind and how to, stress management and all the various things, maybe even going to massage for the first time. Because people truthfully wouldn't go to a massage therapist before they, heaven forbid, you get, you have to, take off your clothes and somebody has to massage you. There was that uncomfortableness that still exists today of the unknown. So we are inundated from a young age to be known. Medical doctors, put them on a pedestal. Inundated. But it hasn't been that same way with natural or nature, being in nature and bare feet. And how many children today, as soon as they can walk, you're putting on shoes. You're not even being able to have them connect and be grounded with nature. That's one thing, but also developmental for skeletal and muscles. It just changes. So bare feet, wherever you can go bare feet. If it's just in your house because you're in cold climate like I am in the winter, so be it. But bare feet, let your feet breathe, because they are one of the areas in your body that detoxifies or lets toxins go out. So I will post this Druthers thing again. News. It's online here, which is great, but they do have hard copies as well. And you'll see a number of important things in here. It's just awesome. There's 12 pages only at the end of the day. Dr. Lee Merritt starts on page 6, but they're all good. I haven't read all of them, but any of the ones that I do read are good. Oh, here's another one. Dear sensitive ones, we need you at your highest vibration possible. Like that title. So this is the compassion. This is the being at peace. This is observing yourself as to what does get you down or what makes you react in the most strongest way that is not helpful for you, may not be helpful for other people around you either. So all those, the emotions. So that's Druthers. And what was the other thing? I think that was it. That was it. That's it on that front. So I'm going to love how much critical thinking you display, refreshing. Well, the idea, Sharon, and for anybody else is, I think critical thinking and thinking for yourself it's a muscle. It's a muscle. And some of us may have, as in other ways, naturally been doing it from a young age. I did it more in my head because I was afraid of the backlash I would get from the adults, be it you have one experience, it doesn't matter what you say. They always know what's best, where you just kind of like, quiet, you kind of, and then you can talk to yourself. Well, that's ridiculous. And then and I have conversations with myself in my mind. But now, now I'm happy to kind of share here at Live at 5 these different perspectives, these little tidbits that fit into the bigger scheme of things to probably navigate our life, navigate this world a little bit more elegantly, maybe a lot more elegantly. And everybody's going to be on the journal, and you probably have your tools, people that you respect, or people, coaches, whatever it is. Maybe not. Maybe you prefer just to read and see what you can get out of it. But some of the joking going around now is the self-help books, right? Or they call them self-shelf books, because you read the book and then you put it down. So it is interesting that sometimes we can learn certain things, but do we put it in practice? And maybe some things will give us certain results and people kind of get down because they didn't get the results. But maybe it was something in the experience of it. I mean, are you critical thinking? Are you thinking? Are you feeling? Are you intuitive and intuitively asking yourself the question, is this for me right now? And so, again, there's so much capitalism, so much of that going on, and so many coaches for coaches that they're saying, do this, and, they just keep pushing emails at you and pushing information at you, and, it's the next trend, it's all of this, and keywords and all of that. So you actually get spun into what other people think is good for you, when you need to intuit what's good for you more and more. More and more and more and more. And there are tools to do that, but different tools for different people sometimes. You may have your best way of doing it. We'll just wrap that up, thoughts. So thank you for that, Sharon. And yeah, any comments, questions, put it down. It's not just for me. Everything that kind of comes up, it's for all of us. And that's why I've heard, and I like this, for every question there's an answer. So isn't that inspirational, motivational at the same time? For every question there's an answer. I'll never forget hearing that. So let's have a little humor here. Now, this is a little backwards humor, to tell you the truth, but this is the book that I got. My dad's place is on the shelf, and we're going through books, and do you want this book, do you want this book, because we're just kind of cleaning up, decluttering, and doing all of that. So Dick Edinburgh's Humorous Quotes for All Occasion. And let's just see, because we're curious, what year this book is. Let's see if it says it here. It should be somewhere. 2000. Copyright 2000. Not sure if it's the only one. So not that far, but I opened it up and I went to politics. So I had to laugh. I won't spend too much explaining why I'm laughing, but I'll read it to you. I'm going to read a couple of them here, and then see what you say. Here's number one. The first one, George Bush, which we know is German descent, according to all of the lineage, and is part of some crazy stuff. So here he says, unlike Churchill, I have no plans to shape history. Liar. Socrates gave advice, and they poisoned him. Well, actually, I think I understand that Socrates said he wanted to die. But anyway, so just understanding some of these things, Socrates gave advice, but he gave good advice. And of course, like other people, they may want to not live in this world anymore. The choice. They have a choice. You're going to do this, you're going to do that. Do you want to get killed, or do you want to be in the cell? I think it was Socrates that Brock mentioned last night on our call. But so in like situation, I have no plans to shape history. I say, liar, liar, pants on fire. That's George Bush. Okay, next one. Margaret Thatcher. Standing in the middle of the road is very dangerous. You get knocked down by the traffic from both sides. So there's a little wisdom from Margaret Thatcher. Let me see if there's anything else that'll kind of come in. So it looks like there's probably different. I'm just going to try and see if I can. Jay Leno. Here we go. Oh, Bob Hope too. Let's do the Bob Hope one about politics. I have the perfect simplified tax form for government. Why don't they just print our money with a return address on it? Like that one. I have the perfect simplified tax form for government. Why don't they just print our money with a return address on it? Ah, Bob Hope, I knew that one would be a good one. Here's Jay Leno. As a politician, he does everything to keep out of trouble, often by not asking questions. However, it does bother him that every time the doorbell rings, his maid hides in the dryer. Okay, there you go. What does Jay Leno know that we don't know? Anyway, we'll just have some laughs over these quotes. There you go. I'm not going to post these up on my page, but let's go into some brain teasers. These are back in this old pun book here. There's a couple that kind of came out, and I wanted to read them. So let's say, oh yeah, this one, and I've heard this one. You might have heard this one, and I'll post this one up for other people to see. So this is remember the rhyming name, Smarty and Artie. So here's Smarty and Artie. Smarty says some months have 30 days, some 31, but how many months have 28 days? That's a brain teaser. Some months have 30 days, some 31, but how many months have 28 days? And Artie says February. And Smarty says, nope, all of them do. There you go. I remember hearing that when I said the same thing, February, but I didn't take pause to think about it. Of course, like trick questions here. Two men were playing checkers, and they played 5 games, and each man won the same number of games. So this Al. So Al says 2 men were playing checkers, and they played 5 games, and each man won the same number of games. And Pal, that's impossible. And Al says, no, it isn't. They were playing different people. That's a brain tweezer. So you really might not know the answer if you kind of think about it. Let's just see. Here's another one. Don and Ron. There was a girl in the candy store who was 5 feet tall and wore size 8 shoes. What did she weigh? Ron, I have no idea. Dawn, it's easy. Candy. She weighed the candy she was buying. Anyway, let's see. Let's go Matt and Pat here. So Matt and Pat. Matt says, how many sides has a circle? And Pat, none. And Matt says, you're wrong. There are 2, inside and outside. 2 sides to the line. Anyway, very clever, very clever. So I'll put that up. I'll post them up on the page for you or for others to see. So that's what we're just going to come to an end there of Live at 5 Mondays, and wish everybody a wonderful evening. I just wish you to get lighter and lighter and lighter and lighter, and when you go to sleep at night, you feel so light, you just doze off into a slumber and have sweet dreams, and wake up so refreshed to welcome in the day, no matter, you just don't know what it's going to be, so the unknown is not crazy, but you can imagine all kinds of things, fresh air, blue skies, that's what I meant, colorful cars, safe children. These are things that I will say every morning thereabouts, and I say freedoms, and then clean air, water, and food for everyone. I just kind of get into that process more and more, and just imagining what I would like to see in the world, and that's that. But you may have your way of feeling great and feeling good and feeling lighter. But at any rate, we're here kind, and at the end of the day, we are feeling better for being kind. There you go. So thanks for coming on, everybody. Thanks for watching, and I hope something was helpful here, and we'll see you next Live at 5 when it speaks to me. Take care. Bye for now.